Son, you have a nasty mouth, Silver said, though I suppose I could fix that by cutting your tongue out. The crowd roared its approval. Suddenly, there was a bright flicker at one of the port windows. Sabrina looked out but didn't see anything. Maybe all the stress was getting to her. Leave her alone, Daphne pleaded. She won't be any more trouble. Shut your yap, child, Silver shouted as he dropped his cane and grabbed Daphne by the throat. I'd hate to lose you too, but I'm sure one grim girl would be just as valuable as two. Take your hands off her, Sabrina cried as she rushed at the rogue. He swung his knife away from Moth and toward her throat, stopping within the tiniest fraction of an inch of her skin. Keep it up, girlie, and you'll be able to breathe out of your neck, he said. Just then, the door into the hall flew off its hinges. A dark figure stepped down into the room. It was Cobweb. Run, girls, he shouted, then opened his mouth and shot a stream of fire at the pirates. They fled in every direction, giving Sabrina enough time to snatch her sister and Moth and rush them back on the steps onto the deck of the yacht. She peeked back and found Puck's cocoon following closely behind. Did he just save us? Daphne said. Sabrina shrugged. Let's worry about getting off this boat. He might come back up here and change his mind. The girls searched the ship, but there was no lifeboat to be found, and worse, the pirates were already charging up onto the deck. Long John Silver hobbled up from below, followed by a dozen angry men with daggers. Two of them were dragging Cobweb along. You know, there's one thing I've learned during my time on Wall Street. You have to weigh the value of investments. Silver bellowed as he came toward the girls, who were now trapped against the ship's railing. Take you, Grimms, for instance. The both of you could be worth your weight in gold, but then again, it might be just as valuable to me to watch you and your fairy friends walk the plank. Dump the stock, now! The pirate shrieked from his shoulder. So! One of Silver's men rushed up from below with a long piece of wood and sat on the edge of the yacht. Once it was secure, Silver pulled the cheese knife out of his belt and forced Sabrina to climb up on the plank. Don't hurt my sister! Daphne yelled. She tried to grab at Sabrina's shirt to pull her back on deck, but one of the pirates yanked the little girl away. Let them go, Silver, Cobweb demanded. A pirate punched him in the belly to quiet him. Wait your turn, the man croaked. Sabrina walked to the edge of the plank and looked down the icy water. This is the second time I've been on one of these things, she remembered. Puck had forced her to walk a plank above their neighbor's pool the first time they met. He had used his pixies to get up on the board. Pixies? Excuse me, Sabrina said. Do I get a last request? Silver smiled. Indeed, name it. I'd like my good friend Moth to play us a song on her flute, something happy before we die. You are as dumb as a cow, Moth cried. You get one last wish and this is it? Sabrina looked at Daphne. Yes, a song like the one Puck used to play for us. One so sad it stings. Daphne's eyes grew wide with understanding. Yes, Moth, play a song on your flute. Cobweb cocked his eyebrows, showing Sabrina that he understood what she wanted. Princess, might I suggest a particular song? I've always loved Flight of the Pixies. Moth took her wooden flute out of the folds of her dress. Sabrina wasn't sure the little fairy understood what they wanted her to do, but she lifted the instrument to her mouth and blew a few short notes. When she was done, nothing happened. Wasn't there a second verse? Sabrina said. Maybe they were too far from shore for the pixies to hear them. No, there isn't a second verse, Moth snapped. Then play again, Sabrina cried. Moth lifted the flute again and blew the same notes. All right, that's enough, Silver said. But wait, you filthy crab, what about your last request? Moth asked. Why would I need a last request? Silver said. Because you're about to be attacked, the little fairy girl replied. A split second later, the entire yacht was enveloped in an enormous swarm of dancing lights. They swarmed around the pirates, who swatted at them with little effect. The pixies were everywhere, and they were stinging with all their might. Silver swung his dagger wildly as little dots of blood appeared on his face. The pirates raced into the belly of the boat, hoping to escape the swarm and letting go of Cobweb in an effort to protect themselves. When he realized his men were gone, Silver hobbled quickly after them. The wave of pixies became one giant mass that hovered next to Moth, awaiting her orders. The little princess stepped over to Cobweb, who had fallen on the deck and was trying to catch his breath. "And now I will deal with you," Moth said. "I'm innocent," Cobweb begged. "I would never hurt Oberon. I supported his efforts to rebuild Fairy. He trusted me with the taxes. We were going to build a hospital and a school for our children. I believed Fairy could be rebuilt. Why would I kill the only man who could accomplish all of it?" "What are you talking about?" Sabrina cried. "I was Oberon's counsel. The money we got from the citizens we were using to make everyone's lives better. We were preparing to announce the opening of a shelter for homeless ever-afters. They were Oberon's ideas, and I was working to make them reality." Sabrina was stunned. She despised Oberon from the moment she met him, even secretly felt that his death was justified, especially after hearing about his goons extorting money from the citizens and bullying everyone into obedience. But now, Cobweb was telling her that the king was a good man, or at least he was trying to be. It didn't make sense that Cobweb would kill a person he respected so much. Sabrina turned to her sister, who was just as amazed, and then to Moth. The little fairy was not moved by the story. In fact, she had murder in her eyes. "Take him!" Moth shouted, and the pixies swarmed around the dark fairy. Cobweb staggered to his feet, and his wings popped out of his back. Seconds later, he was aloft. He was faster than the swarm and was out of their reach in seconds. "Use the cannon," Moth instructed, and the swarm returned to hover around the big gun, using their collective mass to load a bonfire and then fill it with gunpowder. "Moth, don't!" Daphne cried. "This isn't how we do things." The fairy girl ignored her and stepped over to the cannon. She opened her mouth and a stream of fire shot out, igniting the cannon's wick. There was an earth-shaking roar, and the deck buckled beneath them. Sabrina managed to right herself long enough to watch the black missile speed into the air and slam into Cobweb's back. The fairy fell from the sky and plunged into the waters. "No!" Sabrina cried. She found a life preserver and tossed it overboard, knowing it was pointless. Even an ever-after couldn't survive that kind of injury. In the distant waters, Sabrina spotted a flashing blue light heading in their direction. "This is the Coast Guard," a booming voice called out. "Lower your weapons and prepare to be boarded." Moth turned to the girls. "Your job was to find Oberon's killer. He is dead. You are no longer needed. Find your grandmother and your friends and go back to the mud hole you call home." She gestured for the pixies to swarm around Puck's cocoon. They lashed onto it as Moth's wings sprang forth, and she lifted into the air. She flew off, carefully guarding the cocoon as it fought and resisted being taken from Sabrina. Chapter 8. Sabrina and Daphne were taken into custody by social services. A friendly man named Mr. Glassman, who insisted they call him Peter, spent several hours trying to track down Granny Rhoda. By the time she arrived to claim the girls, it was nearly 2 in the morning, and friendly Peter had lost his patience. "These children were found on a yacht in the middle of the New York harbor, Mrs. Grimm," Peter said sternly. The boat was filled with alcohol. Granny smiled uncomfortably and shifted in her seat. "This has all been a misunderstanding. The girls and I got separated and..." "So you were supposed to be on this yacht too?" "Why, no. We told you what happened. We were kidnapped," Daphne said. "Young lady, the police have searched the boat. There was no one on it. In fact, the owner, Mr. John Silver, is thinking of pressing charges against you for stealing it from the marina." "Forgetful dust," Daphne grumbled. "The pirates had used it to make a clean getaway." Sabrina kicked her sister under the table and shook her head. The less crazy that the story sounded, the better off they would be. The social worker took a deep breath. Yes, the forgetful dust you keep telling me about, children. I was your age once. I had imaginary friends too. They're fun and they can even be healthy, but you need to learn the difference between reality and fantasy. Well, I think the girls learned their lesson, Granny said. I'm sure you have other things to worry about. I'll take the girls and get out of your hair. Mrs. Grimm, you seem like a sweet lady, but I'm afraid that's impossible, Peter said. We need to evaluate your parenting skills. We can't just let you take the girls with you. How long will this evaluation take? Granny asked. A few weeks at least. A few weeks? The girls cried. Daphne nudged Granny. Throw some forgetful dust on him. Granny shook her head. I'm all out. Peter rolled his eyes. In the meantime, the state will retain custody of the girls until we can determine if they should be returned to your care, he explained. But who's going to take care of them? Granny Rhoda asked anxiously. Just then, there was a knock on the office door. Standing on the threshold was a rail-thin woman with a face Sabrina knew and could never forget. She had thin lips, a hooked nose, and dull gray hair. Hello, Miss Smart, Peter said. Please come in. The orphanage was exactly as Sabrina remembered. Much like Miss Smart, it was nasty and drained of color. The floors were still filthy and the kids still miserable, and the moth-eaten sheets still smelled of mildew. Smart led them through the main sleeping room, which was little more than a hallway with 2 rows of tightly packed cots filled with sleeping children. Sabrina and Daphne were assigned the last 2 empty beds and forced to change into what Smart called orphanage attire, bright orange jumpsuits that reminded Sabrina of prisoners' clothes. When the girls were changed, Miss Smart led them to her office where they were ordered to sit down. Smart eyed the girls with contempt. Imagine what a surprise it is to see my favorite orphans, Sally and Denise. First, we're not orphans, Sabrina replied. Second, I'm Sabrina and this is Daphne. Yes, the Grimm sisters, the bane of my existence, the woman replied. Listen, let's cut to the chase, Daphne said. You're going to send us to live with some nutcase, and we're going to escape like we always do. You should probably just send us back to live with our grandmother. At least then we are out of your hair. Sabrina was stunned by her sister's bold speech. It sounded like something Sabrina herself might have said. Smart smiled, a frightening sight. Well, if you could kindly explain your plan to the city, I'm all for it. Unfortunately, I am required by law to keep trying to place you in a good home, no matter how pointless it all seems. The caseworker opened a drawer on her desk, took out some forms, and scribbled some notes. Sabrina could read them upside down. Smart had written incorrigible troublemakers on the form and underlined it after adding several exclamation points at the end. I have some good news for you girls, the caseworker offered. I have already found you a foster home that is willing to take you in. We don't want to go to a foster home. Our grandmother is going to take us back as soon as she can, Daphne said. I highly doubt that. The orphanage doesn't make a habit of letting people take care of children who encourage them to risk their lives on the high seas. Maybe someday, when I'm in charge, Smart said wistfully. But for now, you are going to live with Mr. Greeley. The caseworker snatched a folder off a stack of books and opened it. Sabrina noticed the title of the book on top. It was called The Purpose-Driven Life. Mr. David Greeley is currently in prison, but he is getting out tomorrow and will pick you up as soon as he is met with his parole officer, the Smart said. Prison? What was he in prison for? Sabrina said. Let me see. Oh, here it is. It's murder, the caseworker said. Murder? The girls cried, nearly jumping out of their chairs. Yes, he murdered someone. No, I'm wrong. That was someone else, Miss Smart said. Sabrina caught her breath and eased back in her seat. No, Mr. Greeley murdered several people, 7 to be exact. Beat them to death with a crowbar, Smart said. That seems to be the end of this video. I'll send you more later. Goodbye.